Hello, dear friends, I'm with you. I didn't have time to release a video on the Hex Paradise fashion, as it was updated. And since everyone really liked him, today I'm going to show you what's new in fashion. By the way, who hasn't seen the main review of the witch fashion yet? I advise you to first click on the pop-up link over there in the upper right corner and watch it. Well, those who are already familiar with the basics of fashion, start watching updates. So, in addition to a variety of tank fixes, 3 new items were also added to the mod, namely, a dousing pond, and 2 broom tips, non-jade and waterproof. So, the dousing pond. For those who are not familiar with the concept of dousing or dowsing, I will explain that this is a parapsychological practice that claims that it is possible to detect hidden objects, for example underground water sources, with the help of a vine, that is, against a willow, or special frames are made of the same willow twigs, or some similar devices. But you and I know that witchcraft exists. That's why I found the entrance pond from the Hex Paradise mod works very much for real. That's just that he is not imprisoned in search of water, or a line of magnetic force, but 2 specific types of biomes, swamps and jungles. But first we have to craft this thing. This is done from 5 sticks and 1 block of any foliage. Now let's look for biomes. We take the dowsing pond in our hand and squat down and click with the right mouse button. The instrument is recharged, as it were, and an inscription appears that the dowsing pond is aimed at finding the jungle. If we sit down again and right-click on it, it will reconfigure again, and now it will look for a swamp biome. This way, you can switch the search mode from swamp to jungle. After we have decided which biome we want to find, for example the jungle, we need to spin around on the spot. At the same time, it is necessary to monitor how the color of the foliage on the vine twig changes. If it's dark brown, then there's no jungle ahead of us. We turn to the side, and the foliage becomes a little brighter. This means that we are rotating in the right direction, so we continue to spin in the same direction. Then the foliage will turn light green. We continue to turn, and finally, the leaves on the sticks turn dark green. And this means that the twig is precisely aimed at the jungle, and we need to move straight. After flying some distance, of course, we find the jungle. You can also find a swamp biome. The main thing is not to forget to switch the twig to the swamp search mode. By the way, if you have already found the biome you need with a twig and want to find another one of the same, then you need to press the right mouse button, but without a pressed, also held the entrance pond in your hand. The twig will be reconfigured to the nearest biome of the same type as it was selected before. Now consider the new broom tips. As I have already said, there are 2 types of them, nazarite and waterproof. Let's start with the first one. To craft it, we will need a witch's cauldron filled with 2 buckets of lava. And for the recipe itself, you need 1 fragment of selenite, 3 nazarite ingots, and 4 nazarite scrap. I will tell you how to get selenite fragments a little later. This tip is placed in the ring slot and looks quite beautiful. Not as bright, of course, as the golden rings, well, quite pretty and very witchy. I especially like the protruding selenite crystal. What is this nazarite tip for? The fact is that the brooms have become a little smaller. Remember, in the last review, I said that a mahogany broom has fire resistance. So, in the new version, this has been changed, and now both brooms are afraid of fire. And to make the broom fireproof, you will have to craft a nazarite tip. And after installing it on a broom, it will be possible to fly fearlessly in the dark and swim in lava. But keep in mind that the tip is not infinite. It has 200 units of strength, and if it breaks, you know, the broom will burn. In addition, keep in mind that the tip will only protect the broom itself, and this effect will not apply to you. So you will still have to impose a fire resistance effect on yourself in one way or another in order not to burn out. Let's now look at the waterproof tip. He is crafting in a cauldron filled with 2 buckets of water. To make it, you will need 1 marine source, 4 blocks of dark prismarine, 2 fragments of prismarine, and 1 block of ordinary prismarine. This tip also looks very good, although in my opinion it is not as beautiful as the Nazarite one. However, this is a matter of taste. Personally, it seems to me that the selenite crystal itself on the broom tip looks somehow more beautiful than a cube of a sea spring. By the way, write in the comments which broom tip from this mod you like the most. The functionality of the waterproof tip is very useful. If you have tried to fly underwater on a regular broom and fly there, you probably notice that you fall off the broom pretty quickly, so you will not be able to sail far on such a broom. But now, if you put a water tip on it, then you can swim on it underwater and not dismount. Of course, you will have to take care not to drown, because the broom will not impose the effect of underwater breathing on you. But still, this way of moving underwater is much faster than normal swimming. Especially if you are going to fly underwater on a mahogany broom. Well, now let's see what the much vaunted selenite is and where it can be found. Selenite resembles vanilla amethyst in many ways, only unlike amethyst it is white. To get a selenite fragment, you need to first find selenite water. It is usually found underground, but exclusively in jungle and swamp biomes. It looks like a sphere of selenite blocks that can be cut down with any pickaxe and they will fall out in a block. When you walk on selenite blocks, or chop them, or install them, they emit a pleasant crystal chime. By the way, with the help of them, you can easily make so-called nightingale floors in your house, and no one will sneak up on you unnoticed. Inside the Jivet sphere, there are such selenite crystals. They grow both on the floor and on the walls and even on the ceiling. By breaking these crystals, you will receive fragments of selenite, which are needed for crafting a Nazarite broom tip. But keep in mind that selenite crystals come in 4 sizes: small, medium, large, and the largest, which are simply called selenite cluster. So, it is possible to get a fragment of selenite only from the largest selenite cluster, and fragments do not fall out of all other crystals. The fact is that the selenite geoda consists not only of ordinary selenite blocks, but there are also such blocks of blooming selenite. It is on such blocks that selenite crystals appear. First, the smallest one appears. Over time, it will grow and eventually turn into the largest cluster of selenite, which can be cut down and get a piece of selenite, and in its place, after some time, a small crystal will appear again, and everything will repeat itself. But unfortunately, you will not be able to grow selenite clusters closer to home, since it is impossible to cut down such a blooming selenite block. When mined with a pickaxe, it breaks, even with a cup on a silk touch. So when you stumble upon the next deposits of selenite, you will have to stock up on selenite in crock. That's probably all the significant updates that have appeared in this version of the Hex Paradise mod. But there are still a few small additional work, which is also worth mentioning. Perhaps it will be useful to someone. For example, now brooms on brooms will only take damage while moving, and if they hang in place, the broom will not wear out. Keychains with suspended objects began to look a little better. They have become a little bigger, and the connection of the object with the chain looks more beautiful. All willow vines can now be climbed. From now on, you can prescribe the frequency of appearance of new witch structures and the strength of brooms in the configs yourself. And the developer also said that mahogany trees are now being created using NBT files. I don't know what the files are. Mahogany now comes in very different shapes and sizes. By the way, if you suddenly know what NBT files are, then be sure to write in the comments whether it is important for ordinary players, and how it affects the game process. By the way, last time, my dear viewers, I made a little mistake. I got the name of some plants mixed up. But now I've thoroughly rechecked the whole thing. So let's take a quick look at them again. I said that there are 4 plants in fashion, but in fact, there are 5 of them: mandrake, belladonna, wormwood, horse sorrel, and sage. What is planted in the garden bed is actually not a garden version of horse sorrel and not wormwood, but sage. It is the leaves of this sage that are burned in a plate for incense to drive away evil mobs from the territory. After the last video, some of the guys wrote in the comments that a broom hanging high in the air can be lowered to the ground. If you hit it with an arrow, then it will fall out as an object, and it can be picked up. And there are a couple of interesting things that I forgot to mention last time about the fact that herb jars can be given a name in the anvil. I said, but in addition to cans, you can also give a name to caskets in the anvil in the same way. It will be visible here from above in the inventory of the casket, and also for the dark altar, although there is no use yet, but there is an awesome, beautiful animation that will help create a much more magical atmosphere in your witch's lair. To do this, you need to put candles next to the altar and set them on fire. It is important that there is enough free space around and no unnecessary objects get in the way. Then the candles will rise into the air and circle around the altar. In total, it is possible to start 3 candles. If there are more of them, then the extra ones will sit on the ground. Well, that's probably all for today. I personally really liked the new clothes in fashion. There weren't many of them, but they were quite interesting. Well, we will continue to follow the development of this wonderful modpack. I'm waiting for your comments. Did you like this update? Don't forget to put your fingers up. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. There are many more interesting reviews of mods waiting for you. And see you again, dear friends. Bye bye.